Hello, my name is Jay Lyman. I'm a senior analyst with 451 Research, now a division of S&P Global Market Intelligence, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Brian King, Cloud DevTools Lead for the Eclipse Foundation. Thanks for being here, Brian.
Great to be here, Jay.
So today we're going to be talking about software development, the move to cloud computing infrastructure, and open source software. Our research shows that migration to the cloud, reducing infrastructure, and leveraging cloud for developers are all among top priorities for today's enterprise developer and DevOps teams. Let's talk a little bit about the Eclipse Cloud DevTools Working Group, what it is, some of the key members, and why it matters.
Yeah, sure, Jay. So working groups in general at Eclipse, they're basically structures that allow, open source best practices and combine it with a set of services to foster collaboration and innovation. So the Cloud DevTools Working Group in particular has a mission to build an ecosystem of first-class open source cloud dev tools and to promote the adoption of those tools.
So who are some of the key members, and maybe you could also talk about why does this working group matter?
Our key members from organizations large and small, companies such as Red Hat, Ericsson, to smaller companies such as ClipSource, Typefox, and essentially everybody is on a level playing field in the working group. Everybody has the same voice.
We also see in our survey research a very prominent role for open source software for today's enterprise organizations, whether it's driven by cost savings, access to source code, the broader development community, flexibility with other tools. All of these open source software advantages are really driving use. So what are some of the open source software projects that the working group is involved with, and what are they doing to help support these open source software projects and communities?
Yeah, so we have a number of projects and tools in areas of cloud IDEs, workspace management and containers, and other domain-specific areas such as modeling. They really cover the whole development lifecycle. There's a few I want to call out. Eclipse Thea and Eclipse CHE and OpenVSX. So let's start with Thea. Thea is a platform that allows you to build your own cloud IDE. It includes multiple tools such as an editor, a debugger, a CLI, an extension system, and more. Thea is already highly adopted in the market. There's a number of products built on it. It's highly extensible in terms of adding your own branding to it and extra features. It supports VS Code extensions, which is essentially the de facto standard for extending the developer workspace environment. And speaking of VS Code extensions, we also built the OpenVSX Marketplace, which is the open registry of VS Code extensions that can be installed in any software that supports it. Thea is built with modern web technologies such as TypeScript and Node. So, even though it's built with new technologies, it's also very familiar to developers for tools that they already use. Eclipse CHE is a workspace management tool and the industry's first Kubernetes native IDE, and it runs in containers. It's essentially a development environment as code, meaning the automation of the setup for developers. You can code, build, start, debug Kubernetes applications all in one place.
We do see this prominent use of open source software. But it seems enterprise organizations are almost always interested in commercial support, paid commercial support, things like certification, security validation, and integrations, and other enhancements. In fact, paid commercial open source software was driven more than free community open source software by the COVID-19 pandemic in our recent survey. So maybe you could speak to a little bit, this desire among enterprise organizations to have commercial support and enhancement of open source software. Why is that so important to them?
Primarily, it's about quality and reliability. I think organizations, for them, that's crucial. All free software is not created equal. You can't take a code base and just throw it out there. And what we provide within the working group is a vendor-neutral governance. It gives developers and the organizations influence over the technology evolution. Community collaboration also leads to better software. So, things like diversity of contributors, opens you up to more users. Having more eyes on the software, of course, give better security, and so on.
Another interesting thing we see is that today's open source software projects and communities seem to be driven more than ever by real world use cases, applications and services that are out there in front of customers and end users. And this also sort of highlights a greater level of participation from end user organizations. It's not just vendors and developers necessarily. So can you give an example of how working group activity has sort of led to innovation?
Yes, certainly, Jay. So a great example is our embedded special interest group, which was just set up recently. The whole idea of the special interest group is to develop and promote embedded tool technical standards. It's to drive innovation within the embedded tool ecosystem. And of course, to accelerate the move from desktop-based embedded tools to web and cloud-hosted embedded tools. We really want to strengthen and diversify the ecosystem. The group will identify and fill gaps in cloud DevTools project portfolio specific to embedded environments. Another great example of collaboration is in mainframe development. We have companies like IBM and Broadcom, who are members of the working group, who have offerings in this space. And what we've really seen here is that the movement of tools into the cloud has really rejuvenated mainframe development. It's enabled those companies to attract a whole new generation of developers. This really ties back to the Eclipse Foundation mission, which is to bring together industry leaders to collaborate together to create best-in-breed software.
So we're going to wrap up the discussion there. Thank you, Brian, for being here.
Really great to be here, Jay. For anybody who wants to find out more about Eclipse Cloud DevTools, go to ecdtools.eclipse.org.
And for those interested in more about our research and analysis, you can find that at 451research.com.